Dealers, could there be untapped revenue on your lot? Protective Asset Protection works with dealers to unlock new revenue streams through reliable protection products across most vehicle types. Visit protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news to learn more.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Thursday, August 13th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, tariffs force Ford to pull some Lincoln production out of China. California is trying a new approach to get people into EVs, and other states are taking notes. And a Polestar dealer is accusing the brand of using a federal ban as a cover for a quietly planned U.S. exit. Plus, a look at what EV charging could actually become from a site that looks a lot like it's reinventing the gas station.
Our network today is actually profitable, but the company itself is loss-making today because we are growing so fast.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Ford is bringing some Lincoln production home because tariffs made staying in China too costly to ignore. CEO Jim Farley told Reuters the company plans to move production of some Lincoln models from China to the U.S. by 2030, a move he called difficult but necessary. The main vehicle affected is the Lincoln Nautilus. It faces a 52.5% U.S. tariff on imports from China. Farley said the decision was made as soon as the administration's tariff policy was clear. California is rewriting the EV incentive playbook. The state's new My First EV program offers $3,500 toward a new EV purchase, funded equally by the state and more than a dozen participating automakers. According to Mike Murphy, co-founder of EVs for All America, the focus on first-time buyers makes it more cost-efficient than past programs. California new EV registrations fell 25% in the first half of this year after the federal EV tax credit expired. At least 2 other states are already eyeing the model. And a New Jersey Polestar dealer is suing the brand for $25 million, accusing it of using a federal sales ban as cover for a planned U.S. exit. Prestige Motors claims Polestar declined a compliance path that sibling automaker Volvo Cars accepted and kept pushing dealers to invest even as it prepared to leave the market. Here to talk more about it is Urvash Kakaria, who covers Polestar, Volvo, and other automakers for us at Automotive News. Urvash, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Great to be back. Good to see you from Monterey Car Week in drizzly Carmel.
Sounds nice. Urvash, explain what Prestige Motors is claiming here, that this federal ban on Polestar is just smoke and mirrors?
Yeah, it's an explosive lawsuit filed by Polestar dealer Matthew Haken out of New Jersey. He has 2 stores, and he's actually in the midst of building out one of those, moving it away from a mall store into a standalone facility. And he's arguing that essentially that Polestar had already decided to leave the U.S. market at least 2 years ago because they only have a 6% share. So it's not like it's a high volume market for Polestar, which is a European Swedish company, electric vehicle maker. So basically, they had already decided to leave the U.S. market, but then they used this government sales ban as an excuse to basically provide cover for their departure. So to step back, they basically have Chinese software and hardware in their cars. They are owned by Geely out of China. And the government basically has this rule that prevents cars with Chinese software and hardware from being sold in the US. Polestar subsidiary Volvo basically got a waiver that allows them, if they meet certain rules, that allows them to continue to sell in the US. Polestar did not get the waiver. And so this suit is basically claiming that Polestar was offered the same exemption that Volvo was offered and received, but that essentially they declined to follow this long list of very stringent rules that the government said you need to follow if you want to continue to sell. So they, for some reason, decided not to follow those rules. They've decided not to appeal the government's ban. And the lawsuit is saying that, again, this company was not making money in the US. They had a very small share. So by essentially saying that the government forced us to leave, to stop selling here, we can essentially, claim force majeure. Force majeure means it's like an act of God. So basically, it allows Polestar to exit the market, avoid dealer lawsuits, and even essentially not fully compensate the dealers. They're dealers who've invested millions of tens of millions of dollars in their franchises. The lawsuit actually, very interestingly, quotes a recent interview by Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno. He gave this interview to CBT News recently, which essentially echoes these claims. And I'm quoting here. I'm quoting Bernie Moreno here. Polestar was screwed by Polestar. It wasn't screwed by the US government. Volvo was given a list of items that they needed to follow in order to comply. It was a very exhaustive and tough list that Volvo had to follow. Volvo chose to follow it. Polestar, on the other hand, Moreno claims, used the restrictions as a convenient excuse after losing $30,000 to $35,000 per vehicle on every car that they sold in the US. And he said by blaming the Department of Commerce, they think they can bypass lawsuits from dealers and call it a force majeure clause. That's obviously just a scam on dealers, close quotes.
Wow. Well, the suit claims Polestar executives were still pitching expansion plans to dealers as recently as February. Now, what does that say about how the brand managed its exit?
Yeah. So the suit, like you said, the suit basically said even as this rule that prevented, automakers with Chinese technology from selling in the U.S., even as that rule was being finalized, the Polestar executives were urging dealers to continue to invest. They in their stores. They basically said that 2025 was the brand's strongest year. They endorsed multi-year expansion plans timed to the release of the Polestar 7 crossover, which was expected to be this very high volume vehicle in the US. So basically, the suit says this implies that either the brand delayed transparency or they deliberately encouraged costly dealer commitments while knowing an imminent withdrawal was on the cards. So I think that's the thing that has rubbed these dealers the wrong way, where they feel like they were left holding the bag. And obviously, Polestar waited till they got banned to then tell the dealers we're leaving.
Interesting stuff. Good reporting as always, Urvash. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Coming up, EV charging infrastructure is growing faster than EV demand right now, and one company is betting that building something that looks like a gas station is the answer. That's next on Daily Drive.
Dealerships today face tighter margins, shifting consumer expectations, and affordability pressures tied to broader economic uncertainty. At the same time, consolidation and digital retailing are changing how products are sold and supported. That's why many dealers are re-examining how asset protection fits into long-term profitability and business goals. For more than 60 years, Protective Asset Protection has worked alongside dealerships across the country, delivering trusted F&I solutions like vehicle protection plans, maintenance programs, limited warranties, guaranteed asset protection, and more, helping dealerships generate revenue while helping customers protect what matters most. In addition to protection products, dealers have access to programs, tools, and proven training designed to support a wide range of business models. From digital retailing capabilities to dealer wealth building programs, Protective's approach is centered on partnership, giving dealers the flexibility to explore what fits their operation today and how it may support growth over time. If you're a dealer and interested in tapping new revenue streams through protection products, get in touch. Visit protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news. That's protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. EVgo is one of the country's largest public fast charging networks, and this week it opened what it's calling a flagship site in Warren, Michigan. Built in the parking lot of a Meijer superstore. The station has a gas station-style canopy, 12 stalls, and pull-through access for trucks and towing vehicles, and chargers fast enough to top up newer EVs in about 15 minutes. It's designed around a simple idea. Park, shop for half an hour, come back to a charged car. Our own Clara Martinez was at the opening and spoke with EVgo CEO Bader Khan about why the company is building this way and what the profitability picture looks like while EV sales remain sluggish. She then sat down with our own Jake Neer.
Claire Martinez, great to have you back here on Daily Drive.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so set the scene, Clara. You were just there at this new EVgo flagship site, and that word flagship, I think, is a really important phrase here because this isn't just another EVgo charging site. This is supposed to be a look at the future of what they're going to build out. So when you were there out in Warren at this Meijer parking lot, which for people who don't know what Meijer is, it's basically like a Walmart or another superstore kind of thing that we have here in Michigan in the Midwest. Why is EVgo building there? And what makes this a flagship site as opposed to another EVgo site?
Yeah, so EVgo seems to be really focused on building out the amenities that people can access while they're charging their vehicles. They don't feel like they're waiting with nothing to do. And this was a huge kind of undertaking. They have a big canopy. It has 12 stations. The old one had 4 that was owned by a different provider. And they really wanted to set up in a place where people could go in and spend about half an hour and come out and then have their car be fully charged in that amount of time. So they're using both the NACS North American charging standard plugs and then the CCS plugs. So you don't need an adapter, regardless of what kind of EV vehicle you have.
Yeah, when I first saw the photo of this, I immediately thought, oh, is that a gas station? And I was like, oh, wait, this is EVgo. I mean, it looks kind of like a gas station with the big awning overhead, the canopy, and it's much more like that than what I'm used to with EV chargers. You actually had a conversation with the CEO of EVgo. What did he tell you about why they're building here and what they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so I spoke with the CEO of EVgo, Bader Khan, and he seemed to be really focused on building out charging infrastructure that was near retail locations and near amenities.
American families go grocery shopping on average 2 times a week, and they spend about 25 minutes at the grocery store. So this charging station where people are charging their car and you could be here for half an hour, plus or minus, is just a fantastic location and convenience for drivers.
And so in terms of building in Warren, I think they were really focused on building out the corridors in the US because you mentioned how EVgo is a national network and a lot of these charging providers are more local. And so part of what you get when you build out that national network is people can kind of go for those longer drives and it reduces charging anxiety, which at the end of the day, all of these providers and automakers seem really focused on reducing charging anxiety as a way to bring more people into the EV market.
So I want to ask you a little bit about the partnership angle here. It was a big theme at the event from what I gleaned from your writing and other things I've seen. You know, GM is one of several players. You've got Pilot Flying J, Tesla, Iona, ChargePoint, all these companies that EVgo works with. What's the argument that Khan and people like GM's William Hotchkiss are making for why competition sort of has to take a back seat right now?
Yeah, it goes back to that idea of charging anxiety. So what they had said was before, a few years ago, when people were getting into the EV market at a higher rate, people were most concerned about range anxiety. And so they were really trying to build up the kind of software and the ability and the charging capacity of the vehicle so that people weren't worried about their car, dying after 50 miles. And now what they're finding is that's no longer a concern. They've built that up to a pretty high standard. And now the issue is range anxiety. So people are more worried about, like, if I live in a rural area, will I be able to get different places and things like that? And just, being stranded basically without charging or with a station that has really unreliable chargers. That's been another issue, is people trying to plug in and it's just not working. And so what William Hotchkiss was really emphasizing with the partnerships through GM and all the providers is, like, we can, roll out EVs to customers, but if we're not also thinking about the charging aspect of it, you're not going to have people that are going to meet the demand for your supply. So a lot of these automakers, I mean, you see that with Iona. it was founded by 8 of the biggest players in the market, and they all decided to work together so that they're going to boost all of their EV sales.
Speaking of EV sales and supply and demand, I think the timing of this is really interesting because EV sales have been famously sluggish and have gone in the wrong direction in many ways since the end of the federal tax credits. The charging network is actually growing faster than EV demand right now. How did Khan talk about that tension and sort of where does EVgo's profitability picture stand if, sort of the target audience for this, people who drive EVs, isn't growing as fast as the infrastructure?
Well, again, that's kind of where the partnership thing comes in because the providers and the automakers are trying to work together to boost that. So he's kind of relying on GM to roll out more EVs and for people to tap into that more. And then, of course, the automakers need chargers for people to feel like they can be confident about buying an EV. So Khan mentioned how he's pretty confident about the future of profitability because EVgo has had really high utilization rates when you compare that to other charging network providers.
Our network today is actually profitable, but the company itself is loss making today because we are growing so fast. So we incur a lot of expense to grow the network. Within the next year or so, we will, as a company, be able to generate enough cash to cover not just the operation, but also the considerable growth expense that we incur.
What is a little bit unclear right now is like how EVgo, as a network that's trying to expand nationally, can you really compare that to like a statewide or a local charging network? They're kind of on different playing fields in terms of the number of stations that they have and their goals. But he seemed confident that they will be profitable in the long term because of the amount of people that are flocking to the stations right now, even though the company currently is losing money.
Mm. Well, EVgo is hoping that it will have a lot of expansion going forward. Let's talk a little bit about the future as they see it. They want to grow from roughly 5,500 stalls today to 15,000 plus in the next few years. Rideshare drivers already make up about a quarter of their business, and Khan mentioned autonomous vehicles as a growing part of their target audience. What does the picture for demand look like? Who's actually using these chargers today, and who does EVgo see as the customer of the future?
Yeah, so they mentioned how much of a share of their users are coming from Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, like all of the people that are in the rideshare market. Because if you think about it, they're the most reliant on public charging. A lot of people are able to install slower chargers in their homes, but the people that are out there participating in the rideshare market, they really need the fast charging all day, wherever they are, wherever they're taking passengers. And so he said that rideshare makes up about a quarter of their utilization. And so that's definitely a huge part of the market that they expect to, only kind of expand as the network expands. And then also they're eyeing autonomous vehicles, and Khan said that EVgo is already providing more like centralized stations for the autonomous places to come back and charge, but they're not public. They're kind of closed off. They're like more of like the headquarter spaces. And so I think we'll expect to see more of those charging networks in the future, more stations that are public for the autonomous vehicles, which will be really cool to see how that unfolds.
Anything that you want to add at this point, or any interesting things that you saw there at the event yesterday?
I mean, just the speed now that these chargers are operating at, some of them are 350 to 400 kilowatt, so they can charge, especially like the newer vehicles that just have more capacity, they can charge in about 15 minutes. So that was something that was cool to witness, is just like the pace at which these vehicles can charge. And also they really emphasize that they're trying to make pull through stations so that they're able, trucks and vehicles that are towing things behind them can pull up, stop, and then go to the grocery store, go do whatever, and then not be blocking any other vehicles, which is also a little bit of a new development because a lot of the stations that were built a few years ago, you kind of pull up and park. And so you can't really participate in the whole amenity grocery aspect that they're targeting with to eliminate the wait time. So yeah, now you're able to pull up, you can park and you're not blocking anyone, even if you're towing something.
I'm going to come back to this one last time. It really does feel like we're reinventing the gas station all over again. And that's essentially, the model that's worked for a long time. It'll be interesting to see how this develops. Claire Martinez, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to our own Urvash Kakaria and Lawrence Iliff for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on EV charging infrastructure, Ford's tariff response, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for a conversation with Tom Osherwitz of Informed IQ about lenders using AI to speed up approvals and streamline the F&I process, but are not back-tested or challenged, which can lead to being blind to fraud tactics or being out of compliance.
The dealer should think about scrutinizing the models and also understand the AI. It's simply not plug and play. You really do have to understand what you're using.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.